As part of Ferrari Fridays, William Ross from the Exotic Car Marketplace will be discussing all things Ferrari and interviewing people that live and breathe the Ferrari brand. Topics range from road cars to racing, drivers to owners, as well as auctions, private sales, and trends in the collector market.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Ferrari Marketplace Podcast. I'm your host, William Ross. I want to say hello and thank Chris Miele from Prancing Horse of Nashville for coming on, being part of this, and Sam Murtaugh from Mecum. Welcome, gentlemen.
How are you?
Thanks. Good to be here.
We did our first episode on John Shirley's Ferrari 250 GTO. If you're not familiar with it, I highly recommend hitting up Mecum's website. We are continuing our conversation here for the Mecum Kissimmee auction because the second half of this chat that we are having with Mr. Miele from Prancing Horse of Nashville and Sam Murtaugh from Mecum is the Bachman Collection, which is just an incredible collection of cars, of Ferraris specifically. These are some of the lowest mileage collector blue chip cars. The Giallo is a very, very favorite color of the Bachman family for sure. But Chris is the one who knows these cars very, very well. He was the one that was instrumental in getting this all together and getting Mecum all set up, I guess you could say, with all these cars. The other cool thing is it's not just these higher end ones too. I mean, his love affair with Ferrari started with 308s.
Correct. The very first car was the 1984 308 GTS.
So obviously he has that soft spot for him.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
How many there's like 308s and 328s, and he's got the quattro valves, everything and you don't want to say that every man's Ferrari and stuff, but it's, you have something price point wise, I guess you could say, it can fill any spot for somebody. You have a car that's going to be in the low six-figure range, but you're going to have stuff that's going to be seven figures easily. F40, 850 miles. Almost got 459 miles, and F50 with under 1,000 miles. Is that going to break some records? Who knows?
Oh, yeah.
And they have very low mileage. I would assume that they service these things regularly because a lot of these have super low miles.
Yeah, they did. Actually, we were fortunate enough to service some of the cars. We opened the dealership in 2022. We started doing some of the service work because it was just logistically closer to them. And obviously, I had a relationship back in the past with Phil and Martha. But as the years before that, they had maintenance that was done on the cars that the authorized Ferrari dealers that they picked. And sometimes it was in Georgia and sometimes it was in Florida. But the cars were always maintained at an authorized factory store.
The dealership itself servicing the cars, is there a line older than this? Or do you guys have, obviously your techs get certified and do a lot of training. I mean, do you have like someone special that handles the older cars?
Yeah, we have a Classic K technician and that's all he does. Right now, he's actually doing the certification on Dana's 410S. So that was the old Carroll Shelby race car from the late 50s. And we're actually doing the certification on that. So we have cars all the way up to modern day cars that we do certifications on. I mean, right up into, the very early cars of, what Dana's doing. And then obviously all the way up until, I think the one that we just did through the shop was a F12 TDF, a 2017 we just put through.
One of the big things, Chris, in regards to these cars is the Classic K certification. What can you tell us about that whole process?
The Ferrari Classic K certification process is a pretty basic process. The vehicle has to be at least 20 years old or has to be a limited series model, be fully functioning, and have all the original OEM parts. And then it passes through a pretty rigorous multi-point inspection by a Ferrari Classic K expert. Then they go ahead and they send the package off to the factory. The factory approves it. And then by the time it gets approved, you get what they always refer to as the red book gets sent back to the owner of the vehicle.
That's something that you guys at Prancing Horse of Nashville, correct?
Yeah, we actually do it. So like I said, for the vehicle to be eligible, it has to be 20 years old or a limited series. And then our technician goes through the car and he checks condition, originality, and then, depending on what type of car it is, whether it's a road car, Formula One car, a limited series car, and that marks it off if it's eligible. The certification process itself is pretty simple. It's inspection. Like I said, it's a multi-point inspection. They check all the components. They check the chassis, the engine, the gearbox, the suspension, and brakes to make sure that it's original to that actual serial number. If any parts have to be replaced or if they're damaged, they go ahead and they get parts that match the original specification. Even if they have to remanufacture them, they will, if it's a car that's obviously quite old. And then the certification is upon passing all of this, the inspection, you go ahead and go through the certification process at the factory. They have a committee that sits together and they have a pretty comprehensive dossier of the history and specifications of the car. And once it's approved, obviously you get certified and you get that certified stamp and you get the book that gets sent to you.
And that's like then for the rest of the life of the car. Is it something you have to be done every 10 years, say, or something like that?
They recommend that you do it every so many years. They say 3 years because here's what's happening. A lot of times the car gets sold and resold. My rule of thumb is this. If the car is with the same owner and the car obviously is lightly used, it's okay. I mean, if the car obviously gets sold, then you're going to want to recert that certification for the new owner. He's going to want to have an updated certification. In my way of looking at it, it's very similar to having an appraisal letter. If you go ahead and you have a home, you get a new appraisal, new owner, even though the house was done, you're going to go ahead and have it set up for your insurance company or whatever it may be. And it really helps provide, God forbid, there is ever a loss. It's fully documented what the car was.
How many of these cars have Classic K on them on the Bachman Collection?
I believe there was 17 binders, if I'm not correct. Sam, is that correct?
It was 17 or 20. It might have been 17 red and 3 yellow. Is that right? Or
3 yellow, I believe.
Yeah.
All right. What's the yellow?
It would be anything that was a limited series model. So you would have obviously the LaFerrari Aperta, and the F12 TDF. They would have been the cars that would have been eligible.
I don't think a lot of people realize that then. That, everyone thinks red book, but there's also the yellow book. That's something new.
Yeah, there's actually there's a red book with a white stripe, which is for the competition cars. And then there's obviously what they call like a tailor-made car. There's actually a gray book as well. So there's 4 different books to be official. They used to have a white book, but they replaced it with a different book. So there's 4 books now.
Wow, that's spectacular.
It really is. At least you know exactly that you have something that's authentic.
Add to the provenance of the car. That's good to know. Appreciate that information, Chris.
Good stuff.
But I want to jump right in. We're going to just hammer into this. One I want to start out with, though, is that 166 because that's just an incredible car. I'm a big lover and aficionado of the early era stuff. What's really cool about this car, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, that car is originally delivered to the United States?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe it was a California gentleman that had the car originally. He did quite a bit of racing with it. He had a lot of fun with it. And that's what people did back in that era. There was a lot of road racing and tons of events at that point in time in the U.S.
He hit all the good ones, I guess you could say, back then. It was cool to see that. And I was a bit surprised because, back then that was kind of a rare thing. You had to have some deep pockets to bring a Ferrari over. Because, what did Chinetti start being like the import? Like, was that in the early 50s, 60s?
He raced, obviously, for many, many years. He's a 2-time Le Mans winner. He won it back-to-back. Had a close relationship, obviously, with Enzo Ferrari. And then he came to the States and he was the distributor. And the exact year I'd have to look up, but he was at it for just many, 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 many years. He was obviously the go-to guy in New York City.
He was the man, that's for sure. The next one's a very special car because a 275 GTB 4K is probably one of my all-time favorite Ferraris. But what makes this car very special, it's an alloy body car. I'm not sure the total build amount of 4Cams. I know it wasn't that many. How many were alloy bodied cars?
16.
16, that's it. And that was just for lightness, just for racing?
Yeah. Obviously, yeah. The lighter it was, obviously, the quicker you'll go.
Was that something when you would order the car, I guess you'd say, specified it, or just kind of like they built it and then you're lucky to get one?
No, absolutely. 100%. It was something that was ordered specifically, and it took more time, obviously, than a steel body car. But there was quite the weight savings, and, the lighter the weight, the quicker the car would be. It wasn't something that they just put off the assembly line. A lot of the cars were alloy cars earlier on. As the years went on and their production increased, making the alloy cars was tougher and tougher because it is old-fashioned metal beating, and they would pound it out.
Did that car leave the factory in that yellow?
Yes, it did. That is an original, it is an original yellow black car.
I'm a big fan of the yellow Ferrari. That's thing's stunning. 4Cams obviously are the ones to get compared to 2Cams. What kind of premium does that add? Alloy body. Got to be like 30%.
No. It's more than that.
More than that. Okay.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because a perfect steel body car, the first number will start with a 3.6, 3.7 million, depending on the provenance on the vehicle, who did the restoration on it. And then on the flip side is, you have one of the 16 alloy body cars, and, the cars were driven and they were raced back then. So, some of them got a little banged up. Obviously they're straight now and the cars have all been restored, but this particular car does not have any of that. When Emiliano Torker did the inspection on it, he's the former Ferrari Classiche employee, as well as Marco Arrighi. Both of them were Ferrari Classiche employees. Both of them will tell you that the car is probably the finest example that they've ever seen.
For Mecum itself, I mean, what would you guys do, when someone's got such low mileage cars like that, an abundance of several cars, do you have any requirements or prerequisites saying get service or do something like that before you guys will have across the block? Or is there anything you guys want to do special for the cars?
Not necessarily. I mean, obviously, at an auction, typically, the cars are sold as is. As we do help buyers with as much as we can from the inspection process and help them be able to, look around the car and determine where they're at. Obviously, with whatever records there may be, whether it's a Bachman car, or any car in the auction for that matter, just what's there for them to look at and make their own assessment of what they think they're getting into, whether that's going to require some service after the fact or whether it's been serviced or whatever the case might be. So there's no requirements. A car can be sold or offered no matter its quote unquote condition, but helping to give as much information to that buyer to be able to do their due diligence ahead of time. That's why, we very much recommend that you come inspect these cars in advance and do your due diligence ahead of time and get a good idea what you think you might expect to have to do after you buy it, if anything. So that's definitely just part of the process, but when you're buying any car at auction anywhere.
We were just speaking about the 275 GT4 4-cam alloy body. I'm always curious because that's such a special car, but being an alloy body, that's a very delicate car. How do you guys go about preparing whoever's going to be handling that car at the auction? I mean, is there some sort of special people for that?
Yeah, so we've got a designated crew. We call it the collections team. Their role within the organization, that role is, we've got our management team within that collections team, a group of mechanics, detailers, drivers that are dedicated to collections like this, like the Bachman Collection. So it'll be handled by them, handled by our collections team. The display will be in such a way where, people aren't going to just be able to glom all over these cars. They'll be quarantined off, so to speak. They'll be visible, but then it's the only people they'll be able to access and get up close and personal will be registered bidders, and they will be, hosted by team members to be able to kind of guide them through and look at that. So it's not just open season, so to speak, where we're just going to leave a car like that for everybody. We'll have over 100,000 people come through the gates at Kissimmee over the course of the entire auction. So, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of kids. That's a lot of families. I mean, we have to make sure that we display them and present them in such a way that also at the same time, allows them to be seen and viewed and appreciated.
Yeah.
But also, cool thing about Mecum Auctions events and really high-level car events and car shows, for the most part, car enthusiasts understand the unwritten rules of respect about other people's cars and property. But you get that many people coming through, we have to make sure we take the right precautions to protect cars like that.
Exactly. I don't know, maybe just don't realize it, but of a small minority of a big fan of the 400Is and the 412Is.
You are.
I love those cars. Why? I don't know. Just something about it. I like the shape, everything to it. There's one crossing the block that's in this group. It looks like from the photos that car needs a little more TLC to it because it looks like it's missing some panels. Or is that all going to be put back together for the auction?
I think it's going to be basically sold as is. I know that we discussed that we were going to try to go ahead and get it put back together prior to, but I just don't think that it, as I say, worked out in the deck. It doesn't need much. I can tell you that right now. For instance, one of our technicians could have the whole car snap back together in 7 days time.
Oh, really?
7
Okay.
actual working days. It's not like it needs something. And that's not him on high rush. If I put 2 guys on it, they could probably have the car put back together in just a couple days. But the gentleman that was working on it, I think that's the same time when Phil was getting quite sick, Martha was sick, and then the gentleman just stopped working on the car at that time. She got quite ill in 2023, and she passed obviously in early 24.
Yeah, sad to hear that. The one other cool thing about that car is the manual.
Yeah.
I know it's a very low percentage of those cars were made with the manual. The automatics I always thought was interesting. It's got a GM 3-speed in it. But the small amount of those that were built in manual makes that much better. I'm the odd bird.
Yeah, it's one of 5 that were produced in that color combination with a manual gearbox. And it was one of 388 produced with a manual transmission out of the 1,294 400Is that were produced. So when you really look at it, it's quite a small amount that did have a manual gearbox. And like I said, one of 11 produced in that color combination. So out of the 1,294 total, one of 11. It is a really special car. And for somebody that's looking just to go ahead and have a little side project, it'll be a great car. And the car, honestly, I love the car because of the color combination. Because normally you would see those cars, traditionally they're in grays and blues, and every occasionally you'll see them in a black. You don't really even see them in red, even in the earth tones, you would see them in a green, you would see them in a brown, but not really ever in red. So that makes that car really special.
Yeah, I think it stands out.
It is the last one produced in that color combination with a manual transmission.
Wow. All right.
In its own way, it's, as Sam was saying, it's another one of these last ones that comes up.
That car in particular, it's an opportunity car, right? So I mean, it's crossing the block. The car's there, but it obviously needs a little bit of finish work to get everything put back together. But that creates that opportunity, right? So I mean, like you said, that car really trips your trigger, the 400i, and but then you see it's like, well, but it's not done. But then it's that opportunity of, well, hey, maybe I can get a great deal on this thing because it's not done. Typically, it's going to bring quite a few folks like yourself that see that opportunity.
Yeah.
The final price tag of that car will probably surprise you, even in the condition that it's in, because of it's going to create so much of that opportunity desire that, hey, maybe I can get that deal. And it's obviously what we love about the auction process is it brings those people together in one place and then bid against each other for the car. But every once in a while I see a car like that where, hey, it's all there, but if Chris said it needs, 7-10 days worth of work by a couple of techs, having that opportunity. And some people like that, to be able to say that they finished off, they put their DNA on it, they completed the car themselves. It makes it even more theirs when they do get that finished product. And it's kind of fun to see sometimes when cars like that do cross the block. Cool, important car, but not quite finished, but the opportunity is there, which is cool.
To your point, I think that's going to surprise a lot of people in regards to, I think, what that hammers at. And plus, you're going to have some people out there probably think, hey, I can just do that myself.
Right.
To each their own, right?
That's right.
Now we're going to start jumping into the heavy hitters. What's cool with this collection, especially with Fab 5 or whatever you want to call it, having that serious Ferrari collection, it always starts with what everyone considers the first Ferrari supercars, the 280 GTO. Now, this one's spectacular, but the biggest thing is it says it's got 2,007 kilometers, which is just a hair over 1,200 miles.
It's one of the lowest. It's not the lowest. I know of a few others, obviously, and this is the other thing that's very, very important. This car, it's a single owner car, whereas a lot of the other ones that you see that are floating around, they've had 5, 6, 7 owners, and they bounce between, especially the European cars, went from Belgium to France to Germany, back to Italy or what have you. Not that I'm questioning it, but every time that they fill out those odometer statements in other places way back in the day, there was a little bit of penmanship that went into it. This one, it's the original car, original owner. To find an original owner one really, really, really makes it more of a unicorn than anything else. It makes it, to me, one of the most special ones that I've ever seen.
What options does that have on it? Because there weren't that many you could get on that car, but I know there's a few that are pretty rare.
So that car has 3 of the options out of the 4 that were offered. The leather seats were one of them. A lot of people look for the desired inserts, but this car did not have the inserts. It has power windows and it has the AC.
Well, not that many had air conditioning either.
Radio delete. That's what it has. The radio delete, it was usually a lot of people went ahead and the radio was an option.
This is the car with that special luggage too, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah. So that car in particular, there was only 4 or 5 cars that were produced with a secondary bag. So originally, Michele Alboreto, who was a former Formula One driver for Ferrari, he came to Schedoni and he was looking for a very small bag to fit in the car, just to put, an overnight pair of slacks or shirt or something, but something to carry in a hotel and not walk in with a plastic bag. So they created this one bag, this called the secondary smaller luggage bag. They only made it for 4 or 5 people. And this particular car has it. I've never seen the bag ever, other than one other car, which I saw at Cavallino a few years ago, but I've never seen it with anyone else. And the bag alone is super, super, super special.
Oh, God, yeah. Spectacular. Getting like that just adds to the provenance in that car. Rarity alone, but just the options and not having that bag with it just makes it stand up from all, I guess you say, all the other ones. And to your point, I think there was only the one I was aware of too that had lower miles, but I mean, it's just one owner. That kind of kicks off jumping into the super hyper car. Basically has the same engine as the F40.
Very similar.
Now, there's not one, there's 2. 2 F40s in this collection. They're going to be going across the block.
They're super unique.
One's got 850 some miles. The other one's got 459 miles.
So in 1992, for the U.S. market, Ferrari made 60 cars. And then out of the 60, a lot of people say which cars were made in calendar year 1992. And that was the final 24. So there really isn't many that were made. One of these cars was produced in calendar year 1992, and the other one was produced in late 91, but they're both 1992 F40s. Like I said, there was 60 produced. The one that has 456 miles, that car was a factory delivery. It has the EE plates on it, as Phil went ahead and received the car. And that car actually has the original Pirelli P0 tires that were on most of the European cars. His US model actually has those on it. The other car has the Goodyear GSAs, which were super, super rare. And, you can't find them today. So these cars, for guys that are looking to show the car as original, Pirelli stopped producing this version of the tire years ago, as did Goodyear. Goodyear stopped producing them. So when people see them at shows and they say, look, this car is original, for the guys that really know, they know, because all the F40s look pretty much the same, obviously. They're all red.
Yeah.
And they're all red interior.
Exactly. You have the original tires like that on there. What would you do to maintain those tires to be able to utilize them? I mean, obviously your climate control and that stuff, but what else can you do with those tires so you can roll it around on them so they don't deteriorate?
So what Phil and Martha did, a lot of times, like when you put tire conditioners and different products like that, a lot of times they'll dry up the rubber on the car, and they knew that. So that's why when you would see the cars would not have any tire shine. I'm sure, Sam, you noticed that when we were there. The cars weren't all dazzled up with all that super shiny stuff on them, because they knew that eventually would get into the rubber and start to break it down. And if a tire was going to go out of production, I know we're going to be bringing the tires and wheels to the auction. They went ahead and they would say, hey, this tire is going to go out of production. Let's go buy an extra set or two. And sure enough, they have, the extra rubber that they bought for some of these cars, which is non-existent. You just really can't find that stuff.
I mean, that's incredible. I mentioned earlier that the whole collection's going bang, 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 bang across the block, one after the other. Was there any conversation of like maybe separating those two just because of the low mileage and that?
Chris was involved with that as well. I mean, it's, no easy feat. We had multiple conversations with Chris and Dana and everyone. It was to set these 48 cars in order, and, what order do you put them in? Obviously, there's no handbook to that, right? And how do you space that out and make sure that whether it's guys after specific cars, you want to make sure that they have time in between what they're after. And you got to take all these different things into consideration when you're setting an order. And we took our time and thought it through. And, the order that they'll end up being, which we have, is done in such a way where we think it gives everybody the opportunity to be able to focus on certain things. And there's no super magic sauce to how it's done, other than the fact that, taking, like you said, I mean, do you put these two cars back to back? Probably doesn't make much sense. Spread them out just a little bit so that if there is somebody that wants to try and come after both of them, that gives them an opportunity to sort of reset and go after them.
That's a good point. I could see one buyer going after both of them.
Potentially, yeah, absolutely. To mention too, we talked about with the 288 GTO, but both these F40s, again, ordered new by Phil and Martha.
Yeah.
It's one owner F40s, two of them. So, I mean, you're kind of three in a row with, these cars. To me, that's mind blowing. I mean, just like we said with the 288, to find one with one owner, most of them have 6, 7 bounced around all over the place. Same with these cars. Same thing. The fact that one would be incredible, to have two in the same with, the same owner, one owner, it's kind of mind boggling.
I don't think we'll see it again. And honestly, it's an incredible opportunity.
Phil was so hell-bent on wanting to make sure he got one. I think he was working, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but he was kind of working two angles at the same time to ensure that he got one. And then they both kind of came to fruition. And then he just decided, well, I guess I'm going to have two, and decided not to give one up. He kept both allocations and got them both done and put them both in the garage. It was, to me, that story was, I just never heard anything like that. That was pretty awesome.
Best story, honestly, is the one that he really wanted initially was the F50.
Yeah.
The story is Phil went to the factory and got in town a little bit early. So usually when he would travel, t-shirt, jeans, just a good old boy from Eastern Tennessee. And it was the summertime and he went out there. He took a flight and he got there a little bit early, and he was checking in the hotel right down the road, and he was driving by the factory and he saw somebody, and, they said, well, why don't you just come on in? And he was like, I just got here. And they said, yeah, don't worry about it. Come on in. Somebody else apparently walked in the room. They saw him and they made a comment. They said, next time you come here, you better make sure that you have a sport jacket on and a suit and tie. And he was always buttoned up. He was really tight. Phil was, if you look at all the photos and the videos, he was always looking super sharp. So Simone said that set him off. And he said, that's it, I'm done. So he had a little bit of a war with them. And you could see when it was, because it was the F50 in 95. It was the F512M in 95. And he didn't get another car until 99 with the 355 Fiorano. So there was a few years that he basically didn't purchase any cars new at that point. Eventually, he went back out and he found those cars, because people always said, well, why is this one not yellow? Or why did the yellow F512M have 5,000 miles on it? I said, that's because he picked up that car secondary. But the one that sold this past summer at Pebble, that would have been his car, the final one, number 75 out of 75.
Really?
That would have been his car. Yeah, because he was always getting, the last ones at that point. And then it's kind of took like a shape of its own. He started, after that, you could see it with every other car after that. The Fiorano, the 550 Barchetta, it was the last one for the US, and you could just start to see the pattern on how we started to get the cars. So it actually opened something new up after that.
Now you mentioned F50. That's the next one I want to get into. I know this is of interest for everybody because other than Ralph Lauren's that just went, this one with only 251 miles on it is incredible.
Yeah, it really is.
For what's going on in the market with those cars, I mean, those things have just gone to the roof, so to speak, in the past, would you say 24 months, have shot up incredibly.
Yeah, brilliant.
Naturally aspirated manual V12. I mean, it just checks all the boxes. I mean, it's just incredible. Only 251 miles, one owner.
Yeah, this one's actually multiple owners.
Oh, it is.
He purchased this car from Ian Poulter, and Ian was the second owner of the car. Nonetheless, usually what happens is, obviously Ferrari announced the F80, which is the next car in the sequence of the supercars. Usually what happens is every time that they announce one of those cars, and it's generally speaking every 10 years, you had 85 with the GTO, and it was obviously 87 is when they announced the F40, and then it went to 95, and then it went to 2013. As time went on, it's usually about every 10 years, then the LaFerrari and so on and so forth. So here we are, the F80's out. When that happens, generally speaking, a lot of these people, the big collectors, guys that are new to it, they say, well, you called it the Fab Five earlier. Guys say, I want to get all of them. Sure enough, they want to jump on and they say, okay, I want to get all the cars. And then they start to find, I want the best ones. And that's why this Bachman collection is really unique, because what Sam said is exactly the deal. You're going to see two F50s or two F40s in a sale, maybe. But to see them from the original owner with that kind of mileage, I don't think it's going to happen again. I really don't. I mean, and I've been doing this a pretty long time. I've never seen these kind of cars with this type of mileage. And then the uniqueness of the colors, the uniqueness of the options. Obviously, the cars were meticulously maintained. I don't think you're ever going to see it again. I really don't.
Sam, I'm sure the scuttlebutt you guys have been receiving has been that one person trying to go after a lot of these cars at one crack is you're not going to get this opportunity again, but this gets you the best of the best. You guys have had to have some inquiries about, hey, I think one person is going to just wrap these things up.
I mean, yeah, the interest has been incredible, as you might imagine. I mean, as soon as we announced it, I mean, the emails and phone calls coming in to folks getting registered to make sure that they don't miss the chance to be a part of it and get their hands on things has been from day one when we first made the announcement and just steady through. I mean, it's been great. I mean, obviously, I think Ferrari collectors in general just are realizing the uniqueness of this opportunity and the fact that opportunities like this, to Chris's point, are probably not going to present themselves anytime soon, if ever again, especially with some of these cars. I mean, one owner F40s, the one owner 288 GTO. I mean, this could be it. I mean, and to have this many incredible cars and these types of conditions in one place to be able to come take your pick. I mean, it's
The other great thing is if you look on the website, these are all going off one right after another. So that's going to be an incredible 3 hours, maybe 4 hours of just blue chip one after another. So, I mean, that's going to be some exciting times in a room for sure. And there's really no let up.
It's going to be a heck of a week.
Yeah. I mean, whoever is going to be up running the show at the Hammer is going to have a heck of a time. That's a career moment. I mean, all these in a row. I mean, that person's just got to be ecstatic because that's just going to be unbelievable.
No, it's fun. I mean, and our auctioneer team is to that point. I mean, these guys absolutely 120 million% love what they do. And they get so jazzed and energized by crowd enthusiasm and bidding enthusiasm and seeing, what they're doing in their craft and help these folks get their hands on these cars and helping be a part of that process is really what drives these guys. And they're talking to them about what's coming up in Kissimmee for everything we've got going on between, with the 250 GTO, the Bachman cars here. And this is probably one of, if not the greatest lineup of vehicles that we've ever had in Kissimmee, Florida by far. To see it all coming together is pretty special. It's already a special moment. The moment hasn't even happened yet, so I can't even imagine what it's going to be like in the moment, live, and when it's all unfolding. It's going to be pretty incredible.
You're going to have all those emotions, excitement, anxiety, everything.
All of it.
Because it's just going to be it's just going to be incredible. And I've been telling people, if you got a way to get there, you need to go to Kissimmee in January to be part of this because it's just going to be incredible. I mean, just the atmosphere, everything, the energy is going to be unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, I can't wait. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
Getting into rarity, we're going to talk about the Enzo. I would have to gather that's the only one made with that color combo.
No, it actually isn't.
Really?
Yeah, there was another one that was made, but this car was originally left the factory, came off the assembly line with black interior. Phil wanted this other style red Daytona seats. So they were installed at the factory, and there's photos of the car coming off the assembly line with the black seats. The car comes with both sets of seats in the delivery room with the red seats. So they swapped them out. So that was for homologation purposes. But This car has some really unique features that no other Enzo I've ever seen that has. It has the engine brace struts in the engine bay. They're both polished. The lower body color, usually on the very bottom of all the cars, they had like a black trim that went all the way around the lower trim and the rear diffuser panel. It has the Enzo Ferrari signature badge. I've only seen about 5 or 6 cars that have that. It's really a unique one. But in Giallo for the US, there were 11. There was 36 cars produced globally, but 11 for the US.
That's incredible. I mean, I mentioned before, I love the Giallo. I mean, the yellow is fantastic, but having that red interior, I mean, that just really makes that pop.
And again, one owner.
645 miles.
Again, that's just, you don't see it. And again, to your point, usually a lot of these have multiple owners.
Right.
Yeah.
The opportunity there for one owner, that's magnificent in itself. And just the demand for that's going to be incredible. I mean, it's just insane.
Phil was at the factory and actually they suited him up on the production line for this car. This is the one, isn't it, Chris, where they got to kind of turn a wrench on the final stages of the build for the car. So there's a picture of him wearing a full suit in the factory, putting a bolt in the bottom of the car. It's pretty cool. I think he's probably the only one that's ever had a chance to do that.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
You mentioned the photo with him wrenching on the line stuff. Is there some cool items that are coming along with these cars for the next caretaker?
Yeah. Well, there was a book that on a lot of the later cars that Phil picked up and he did a European delivery. There was what they call a photo book. So the delivery sales department, they would go ahead and provide a book. And it was manufactured from Schedoni. Everyone got it. And they probably did at that point in time, I don't know, maybe like 30 deliveries a month. And people would go to the factory, pick up their car. They would get a beautiful book. They would take the photos. They'd have a professional photographer there and they give this book to you. So remember, years ago, back then, the digital photos that we see today, they weren't really what they are today. You would actually get an old-fashioned photo book. And Phil has a photo book for lots of the cars. And if you look at all the photos, you'll see the same thing. You see PB growing, their son, because he was getting smaller and growing. You see Phil and Martha, and then you see Simone. He was in all the photos. So when you go through it, it's kind of unique. So you get that. And then, every car comes with its original stuff, what I call all the tchotchke stuff, the little instruction pamphlets and all these little things, which as time goes on, people take them and they're like, I don't need this little brochure. I don't need this little pamphlet. And they toss it. Phil and Martha saved everything. When I tell you everything. So there's just so much stuff. I mean, that's what I'm going to call it, is stuff. There's just so much stuff that comes with every car. It's amazing. It's, and it brings back memories even for me. There was these little static stickers that I would stick onto the windshield about emissions. People would peel those right off. When you get in your new car, there's like a sticker about an airbag or whatever it may be. And people pull that off. They don't save it. They throw it in the trash. He saved it. He has everything. You name it, they have it. That's what makes this collection really unique. And obviously, we mentioned it multiple times, but it's a car that has an original owner. So to have an original owner on cars going all the way back to 84, even if he started buying cars when he was 30 years old, obviously you can do the math. I mean, he'd be in his 70s today. So Phil was pretty successful and he started buying cars quite early. He saved everything. And since he was a car dealer, he knew to save a lot of that stuff, whereas most people didn't. And then as the years went on, as they started to show the cars and take them to concours events, they'd break out that stuff and people would be just amazed that they had every little pamphlet, every little sticker, you name it. He would peel off the sticker that was, on the adhesive. He put it on like a nice little backer and save it. And he'd say, look, here's all the original stickers that came on the airbag or came here or came there. He has everything.
That's incredible. Sam, that had been you guys have archivists and everything like that too, because you guys also deal in Memorabilia, however you pronounce the word. So that had been kind of interesting for you guys as well, to whoever was going through it all, to see all this material like that, because you don't ever see that.
So it was a big task. It's still ongoing a little bit right now, just making sure that we've got everything that belongs to the car, goes with the car, so to make sure that new owner gets that stuff. But also, in addition to all the cars and all the things he saved, as Chris was mentioning, he also would collect stuff, tchotchkes, Ferrari related memorabilia, things like that. So his garage was full of that stuff. So, going through and making sure we determine, okay, this award belongs to this car, or this piece goes with this car, but then also to segregate out what was just general collected merchandise to make sure that we have that inventoried properly, because we'll also be selling that stuff off the following day on Sunday. We'll sell the memorabilia that was the decor that was in his garage, Ferrari light up signs and, flags and banners, posters, things like that were just there as any car guy would decorate his garage with. So we'll have some of that as well. So having to go through carefully and calculatedly to make sure that we've got everything sorted correctly and what belongs to a car that needs to go along with it. and all that. So yeah, it's been some work to do, but those are always fun projects to be able to, the discovery, you're kind of like an archaeologist in that regard and, looking and discovering new things. And Chris and I were there last month, and Chris kind of blew my mind with just his photographic memory of all things in tchotchke Ferrari, and what I might drive by this little medallion and not think anything of it. But then Chris would give me this backstory about how unique this little pin is. And for me, as a car enthusiast myself, I see thousands of cars all year long at all these different events we do, and it's work and it's a job, and some of it becomes numb. But then every once in a while, you learn something new, and it really trips my trigger and reminds me of how much of a car enthusiast I am, because how cool some of these stories are. That a little 2-inch by 2-inch medallion that's got a backstory can be a really fun thing to learn. As kind of nerdy as that sounds, there's so much of that going on inside the Bachman's garage. It was pretty amazing.
Amazing stuff.
Wasn't like these things were mass produced. Keeping all that stuff or collecting it and finding it, it's just huge in itself.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing that as well. What was his intent buying these cars? I mean, obviously he didn't drive them, or maybe he drove them half a mile a year. Was it more just a passion because they're just gorgeous cars? What was the thinking behind, hey, I want to buy this, but then I'm going to keep the mileage low?
When I would speak to PB about it, he understood, and obviously he had quite a number of cars as the years went on, so he can spread it out. If he wanted to drive his Ferrari, he had 46 of them to drive at one point in time. But, he understood what it meant from an authenticity standpoint. Phil got into doing the Corvette stuff. He did the Bloomington Gold stuff. And he understood that a car that was dead original and had super low miles, the value was going to be even that much more. So as a car dealer, he said, hey, look, we have to exercise the cars. We have to go ahead and use them somewhat. We just can't let them sit. So they were maintained properly and they were used from time to time. Hence, how did this car get 400, 500, 600 miles over the years? But 20 plus years. And even if you take the car out for a mile or two a month, 25 miles a year over 10 years, it's 250 miles over, it just adds up. People don't think it's much, but that's how it starts to add up. He really didn't drive them much, but he did take them out from time to time. And that's why some cars have a little bit more miles than others. But I think the real big deal was the FXX. When he had the FXX, that was like his chance to really get out there and really run some miles. And he ran them, and he went to all the events, has all the stickers of all the events that he participated in. And he really had a blast and he enjoyed it. Unfortunately, Phil got sick and had a stroke in early 2011. That was his first stroke. And then he had another one after that. So he wasn't able to compete anymore. But when the program came out in 2006 and all the way through, I think he was super active through 2009. He was doing a lot of the events. I mean, a real lot of the events, and he was really enjoying life.
Good for him. That's great to hear. I mean, those FXXs are just insane cars. And it's cool that he exercised them and utilized what it was made for. Really awesome to see. And what about like the challenge cars and stuff as well? I mean, did those ones just kind of sit more, or was the FXX the only one he really kind of went out and, I guess, they had some fun with?
He didn't race Ferrari Challenge. So Challenge Stradale is a road version of the Challenge car. He had two different ones. There's a green one in the collection and obviously the yellow one. He put a little bit of miles on those cars, but again, not many. Very, very few.
We talked about the LaFerraris, the Aperta and the Coupe, again, in unique colors. How rare are the colors on build numbers for those cars? They're both spec'd out spectacularly.
They're both really, really unique. The two most unique cars, in my opinion, in the collection are obviously the 599 SA Aperta and the 599 GTO. But to your point, the car that you pointed out, plus the 458 Speciale Aperta. But towards the end, like I said, I mentioned it when we were doing the video, he was kind of the pioneer on a lot of this stuff that went on. It was just really, really neat stuff that he did. The exact number of the Giallo Tristrato, which is a triple layer paint, which is on the LaFerrari Aperta. They made 210 of those cars. That car's got the black interior. Obviously, on the other car, on the LaFerrari, it was one of approximately 500 produced, and they produced about 150 for the U.S., but it's a super, super, super unique car. Really, really, really unique car. I mean, they both are.
To kind of wrap this up a little bit, you touched on the Speciale Aperta and the 16M as well. In value, been crazy the past couple of years just because the last naturally aspirated V8. Sam, you guys have probably seen a lot of interest, I want to say from a younger generation, but you're going to have a lot more youthful interest in regards to these cars coming towards the end just because of how, what they are. You guys anticipate, I want to say younger, but different demographic going after maybe those cars?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we're already seeing it too in the inquiries that we're having. Obviously, collecting cars is a generational hobby, and the folks, they're after nostalgia, what they remembered when they were young. When I mean young, meaning when you started driving cars and you started getting into it, and what you aspired to acquire, right? Or what you wish you could have, but you had no money at the time. there's a lot of that going on. So definitely young in the town. And by young, I mean, that could be, 30s and 40s young. There's not a lot of 18-year-olds coming out of the woodwork for the cars per se.
Yeah.
Well, there could be, certainly with how the world works today. But yeah, definitely younger generations, coming after these cars. I mean, myself personally, I'm 47, or I think I'm 48 now. The F40s, the 280 GTO, in high school, those were the ones I was drooling over. That's I had a picture of a 280 GTO on my wall in my room, growing up. So those are the trophy cars from my era, right? So guys in their 40s are coming at those things hard, where, even you get into the later model stuff and it just keeps getting younger. But the one thing about Ferrari, whether it's the 288 GTO or the 2019 TDF, whatever, anything in between, I mean, those cars really just transcend across all generations, period, end of story, all the way back to, even going back to that 67 alloy car. I mean, the Ferrari brand is appreciated so much deeper than most. And that's really interesting to me, that, the appreciation, whether you're 75 years old or 25 years old, I think it really runs the gamut. But to answer your question directly, we are absolutely seeing an influx of a slightly younger demographic coming in, getting ready to bid on these cars. And so like we were talking about earlier, I think it's going to be a bit of a frenzy in the room and at the time. And, whether if you're not interested in buying them one or you can't afford one just yet, to be there on site and watch this whole thing unfold is going to be a spectacular spectacle.
I agree. And on that note, we could talk for hours because there's so many special cars in this collection, not just the one we kind of went in depth on. I mean, it's an unbelievable collection. And, you don't have to be a purchaser or a buyer to enjoy this and especially be part of the action. If you got the wherewithal, you can get to Mecum Kissimmee in January. I think you definitely need to be there because you're going to have several hours of just Ferrari love going across that block, and you're going to see some great action. It's going to be spectacular. So I can't wait. I'm very, very excited for that. So I want to thank you guys for coming on. I really appreciate that. We'll see you guys down in Kissimmee, I'm sure. Chris, mentioned before, he's going to have a special guest potentially coming down there too. So we'll see. But guys, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. And remember, guys, hit that like and subscribe button and stay tuned for our next episode. Have a good one.
Nobody sells more than Mecum. Nobody. Mecum Auctions is the world's leader of collector car, vintage, and antique motorcycle and road art sales, hosting auctions throughout the United States. The company has specialized in the sale of collector cars for more than 35 years, now offering more than 22,000 lots per year and averaging more than one auction per month. Mecum Auctions is headquartered in Walworth, Wisconsin, and since 2011 has been ranked number one in the world with the number of collector cars offered at auction, and is host to the world's largest collector car auction held annually in Kissimmee, Florida, as well as the largest motorcycle auction held annually in Las Vegas, Nevada. Mecum's Road Art and Mecum On Time divisions offer a wide variety of collectibles for live and online auctions. You can learn more and follow Mecum and their upcoming events at www.mecum.com, or you can follow them on social at Mecum Auction on Facebook, at Mecum_auctions on Instagram, at Mecum on Twitter, and at Mecum Auction on YouTube.
For everything from Ferrari and Porsche, Lamborghini, and Koenigsegg, visit exoticcarmarketplace.com. If you're into anything with wheels and a motor, log on to the Motoring Podcast Network and check out our family of podcasts at motoringpodcast.net. This is the place to find your favorite new show. Next up, a shout out to David Beatty and his team at Slot Mods, who custom build some of the coolest slot car tracks in the world at slotmods.com. Let your imagination run wild. And finally, Grand Touring Motorsports, covering all aspects of auto racing and motorsports history. Check out their e-zine at gtmotorsports.org. All the links for our sponsors are in the description.
This episode has been brought to you by Grand Touring Motorsports as part of our Motoring Podcast Network. For more episodes like this, tune in each week for more exciting and educational content from organizations like the Exotic Car Marketplace, the Motoring Historian, Break Fix, and many others. If you'd like to support Grand Touring Motorsports and the Motoring Podcast Network, sign up for one of our many sponsorship tiers at www.patreon.com/GT Motorsports. Please note that the content, opinions, and materials presented and expressed in this episode are those of its creator, and this episode has been published with their consent. If you have any inquiries about this program, please contact the creators of this episode via email or social media as mentioned in the episode.